So the whole scenography of the exhibition was inspired by the architecture of a gymnasium that is called Zulkhane. It means the house of strength. So it comes from ancient Persia, and it's now today there is a federation and it's a national sport. But initially there were like clandestine caves where men were preparing themselves to build their body to face the enemy. And it became a place of sculpting the body, but also elevating the spirit. And there is a very specific architecture inside this gym, the Octogone, that's the title of the exhibition, that is always drawn into 1 meter into the ground. And I worked with many archives I found of this gym, from very old one to more contemporary one. And you always have this space that surrounds the octagon where the athletes actually train themselves, where they put their clothes, where you can see them resting, having tea. I mean, it's a space of also sociability and of transition, of putting clothes after they train. And I think there was also an echo with Vienna and all the lockers we can find in opera or in public spaces. That was interesting to introduce. Yeah, it's also a place where body and values are shaped together collectively. And what interested me the most in the Zulkhane was that it was not only about the body, but also about the spirituality. It was really a place where you became a man by sculpting your body, but also elevating yourself with spirituality. There were always a man that is playing an instrument and chanting with poems. I think this place is really a testimony of cultural resisting through history. You find poesy, literature, music, also dance, because they do the Sufi dance. All of their exercises are quite military, and there is a very metaphoric aspect of their exercises. For example, when they train, they imitate the fact to be like with a horse, or to be swimming inside the sea. I think it's also a space of imagination. I think taking off the performative aspect of classic clothes make the sculpture more pictorial. I think I compose them as I would compose a painting or a collage of photography. I use the accessories, all the details, as I would add colors on an actual painting. Also that most of the time all of my researches are sourced by the history of fashion, and you always discover that like a sleeve or the shape of a skirt is never only being decided for the shape, but for a specific use, and even behind the specific use you always have like a story behind it, that it's related to the society, the time where the clothes were invented, and that carry a lot of memory and different collective histories of different epoch. I think I'm interested in how all these materials can carry memories beyond biography. So in the work Bunch of Flowers, I used many different fabrics, from handcraft one that belonged to my family to more manufactured one. And what interested me was to look at the motifs that comes from globalization to very detailed handcraft work, and how today we don't really question ourselves about what we wear and where it comes from, and not only the way it's produced, but more the history behind a shape or the history behind a motif. And in the Zurkhane, I observed the way the athletes were dressed, and they had this kind of trousers, that short ones with a motif that we call pochegere, and that most of the people know as paisley or cashmere. And I tried to retrace all the travel that made this motif from ancient Persia to India and through the Silk Road to Europe and even to the United States in the West Coast, with all the cowboys wearing this kind of scarf around their neck. Yes, I think it's very powerful to see, because we talk about cultural appropriation today, but it's also interesting to observe how there have always been crossing cultures and like hybridization, but that were very slow through travels, through economic, because, for example, the paisley motif that we also call cashmere comes from the region of Kashmir in India, and there were travelers that were going to the US to sell this big scarf where there was this motif on it, and there were a population that were living with like Latinos and Black Americans that were, for example, cowboys. And I think what interests me also is the political aspect of the garments in general, how it can shape the body, control the body, and also codify with a lot of interpretation and projection. And maybe that's why I call my sculpture image garments, because in a way we are all carrying and wearing images of what people project on us. I think fashion has always been political. I think fashion was a witness of women's liberation, for example. I mean, a piece of garment shapes someone's everyday life, and it's very powerful to see how it can become a symbol of resistance and a witness of political changes through history. I just found out the word Heimat doing some researches. It was interesting to see how it has been instrumentalized through history, from Hitler to far-right movements today. And it's a bit frustrating to see how some words then actually carry identity and patriotism, but in a positive way, can become a very connoted word. And I think lots of people today struggle to defend the fact that Heimat can actually be plural. But I think what interested me in the word was more something relational, more than territorial. And yeah, because I work on garments, I was so curious about the traditional clothes that Austria has. And this was also this reference of Adolf Loos, Ornament and Crime. I think this book really traumatized me when I read it, because my work is so ornamental. So I made this piece that is love and ornament, and it was, I think, my love for ornament and for all the stories, like intimate stories, but also collective history that it carries. I mean, Instagram, for example, for me is so baroque. We have ornament everywhere with all the emojis, everything is on comment, on layers. You have infinite perspective into Instagram. It's a mosaic of images, and all the tools they give us to build our profile are so ornamental. I'm often frustrated by a very Occidental way of, very binary way of seeing the world. What Britney Spears lived through the patriarchal struggle she was into is not that far from the very patriarchal theocracy that is in place in Iran. I mean, in Iran you can do anything without the authorization of your father. Yeah, it was the relation with the first feminist movement with women life freedom and this whole movement Free Britney that was invented by her fan base. That was incredible to see a movement that came from the internet. So these photographs come from an Instagram account that's called From Iran. It was created after the death of Mahsa Amini in 2022. I think it's interesting to watch Instagram, how it's a space of archive, but also a space of how the information circulates. And it's a picture that was taken in a street in Iran. We don't know which city, but there were all these slogans that were written like graffitis on the walls of many cities in Iran. This one means Moravemat Zendegis, resistance is life. And you have this white shape behind the letters. It's because the government would come erase the graffiti and people would come back to rewrite it. And sometimes they would come back again and again painting on, and it's a bit like the cat and the mouse. And there were two pictures. So the one we used for the wallpaper and another one with the shape of someone that probably just wrote on the wall. And I didn't want to make this silhouette disappear, so I remade it with the piece of garments that is hanging on the tree. It's written inside the clothes, never give in. I just wanted to make an echo with the Zurkhane, that is Asian Persia space of resistance, to another kind of resistance today.